Joining us now is Democratic Congressman Joe Morelle of New York. He is a ranking member of the House Administration Committee. That committee has oversight of federal elections, and Jackie Lopez, partner with the Elias Law Group. Jackie, I want to start with you because I am holding in my hand, shout out to Adriana, I think 90 pages of the order, the manual, domestic mail manual regarding the transmission of mail-in or absentee ballots for federal elections pursuant to its rulemaking authority based on an EO that Donald Trump signed. We should be very clear that Donald Trump, as president, nor the U.S. Postal Service are supposed to have any power, any control, any role, actually, in elections. So talk about this latest rule that's here. I don't know if you've read it all at this point, but you definitely have been paying a lot of attention to it as it's come. But this final rule, to me, seems, as that Republican put, devious.
Devious doesn't even go far enough, right? You're exactly right that what this rule does, let's make it simple because that's a lot of papers.
Yeah.
What it is this is the president using the USPS to try to seize control over who's able to vote by mail and impose a tracking system to then be able to track individual ballots, right? That's insane. The president has no authority to do this. The United States Postal Service has no authority to do this. And my firm is actually in court. Not only is this case before the Supreme Court, my firm is in court in D.C. on behalf of the entire Democratic Party. We're fighting. We're going to sue. We're in court. We sued. We're going to get this overturned. It is illegal, just to be clear on that, right? The president has no constitutional authority to do this. I'm honestly glad this rule just came out when it did. Yeah. So let's get this done, right? We have federal judges poised to strike this down. It's time to do that and move on and conduct elections in a free and fair manner because this is ridiculous.
And just to be clear, I mean, this seems like a way to circumvent the 23 losses that the DOJ has already faced in trying to force states to provide their full statewide voter registration databases. Am I right on that?
Exactly right. And that's such an important point. The U.S. Department of Justice has lost 23 times now in court. And no judge has said you have a right to this data. And yet they continue to threaten election officials to now publish this rule, anything they can do for them to decide who gets to vote by mail.
But Congressman Morelle, you are one of the Democratic lawmakers who have been involved in trying to game out and plan for these nightmare scenarios. You, according to Punchbowl News, said that you've identified probably 150 different threats to the midterm elections. In response, Morelle has developed an election security toolkit for House Democrats to prepare them for a number of scenarios come the fall. Out of those 150 threats you've identified, Congressman, which one concerned you the most?
Well, I think certainly we're concerned about all manner of threats, and I don't think we're devious, but we're certainly trying to be creative and thinking of all the ways that the president might try to continue to subvert the election. I think people are most concerned about intimidation at the polls, whether it's deploying military personnel, ICE agents. I think they're concerned about members of the federal government seizing ballots, the FBI doing what they did in Fulton County, but instead of waiting 6 years until after the election's over, trying to seize ballots the day after or the night of. So I think some of those things. But look, we're prepared to meet this threat. I mean, we understand there are threats, but people should have confidence in the elections. I think local election administrators do an amazing job, and that's not just the Democrats, Republicans. They care deeply about this, and we're engaged in conversations daily with people all over this country who care deeply about it. And part of the problem for the president is not only is he reckless, and he's also clueless. He doesn't understand how the election system works. There are 50 different systems. Some of the things that he's mentioned recently have been completely debunked. For instance, he gave a speech a couple of weeks ago on national television, claimed 16,000 people in Nevada were illegal and shouldn't be on the voter rolls. Turns out they're now down to 185, which they haven't identified. That's their new list of potential problems, from 16,000 to 185. The president just doesn't know what he's talking about. So he's going to continue to threaten us. We're going to continue to meet those threats. And the American people should be very confident these elections will go off as they always have, and they'll get to decide who's in charge of their government.
Jackie, I hope the congressman is right, but I, like a lot of people, have a lot of concerns about what could happen in November. Listen to what Steve Bannon on Tuesday said the president should do in the run-up to the elections. Watch this.
This is why we need a national emergency proclamation, a national emergency memo about the upcoming elections. You're going to have a forcing function to get to ID. You're going to have a forcing function not to have the phony mail-in ballots. You're going to have forcing function, Jack Posobiec, to have a up-armored ICE presence at these polling booths. And they say, well, that's going to be intimidation. Well, it ain't intimidation if you're a United States citizen. It's an intimidation if you're a foreigner and here illegally and not eligible to vote. It should be intimidating.
Okay, Jackie, those words are intimidating, listening to him. But, you know, your colleague, Mark Elias, on Martha's Vineyard earlier this week was part of the Hutchins Forum, which is annual forum talking about all things related to democracy. He said something that really concerned a lot of people and freaked a lot of people out in terms of a tactic that could be used on Election Day. And one of those is everyone's focused on ICE being at the polls, as we just heard Steve Bannon say that's what should happen. But apparently you guys are looking at the possibility of ICE raids being conducted near polling places in order to close off the streets, thereby preventing people from voting. That is a level of deviousness, evil genius that I had not considered. And I'm thankful you guys are thinking of it. Is there anything that could be done to prevent something like that? Because now that's really getting in the way of people exercising their right to vote.
Absolutely. And it is the real threat. I obviously agree with Mark. And I think our firm sees that because we are election experts. We watch how elections happen on the ground. I've been in the ground in states across the country. And once you've been there, you realize if ICE is at the polls, people just go in and vote. Not to undermine how intimidating it is, but like, we can help. That's easy enough. Go exercise your right to cast a ballot. But what if they're blocking the only parking lot? What if they're blocking all the streets? You cannot get to the polling place, right? And it's your only hour you have to vote. Ordinary Americans have to go to work. It's a serious threat. And so my firm has been working with state and local officials across the country to be ready to this. We need backup plans. We need to know where are other parking lots. How can the mayors of cities, how can city councils, elected officials work to clear streets, work to clear other streets, right? We're going to have to be prepared to have a plan that doesn't incite violence, right? We got to keep things calm. But that will get people to where they need to go on Election Day. It's absolutely critical.
Congressman, I want to switch gears just a little bit. It's definitely connected to this New York Times headline that came out Thursday from Dustin Voles. Trump boasts of declassifying secrets, but withholds key election files from public. The document that they are supposed to give out would provide the public with a holistic look at foreign attempts to influence voters and sow division around the presidential contest and other federal races that year. The omission of the report on the 2024 election shows the highly selective nature of the Trump White House's approach to declassification. Also, their flouting of literal law. They are legally required to release this document, which says these are the things that we as the intelligence operations and agencies within the federal government have seen of the 2024 election. This is who is trying to hack you or maybe hack other things, right? That is what this is supposed to be about. And I heard you on your question, I think to Jackie, about Donald Trump being clueless about how the elections work. But I also think he doesn't care. Yeah. I think it's more importantly, it's not that he's clueless. It's that he doesn't seem to care how they are supposed to operate. He doesn't seem to care that 50 plus elections are safer than one election held by the federal government and operated by the federal government. He doesn't seem to care that the American people should have the right to choose their leaders who go out in front and make their case, because he has clearly not tried to make his case to the American people about what he's doing. So when you, as someone who's going to be working on this diligently, and you hear what Jackie just said and Jonathan just laid out with this terrifying thing that Mark Elias talked about, what tools do Democrats in Congress without the actual gavel have at this moment to protect people and the right to vote?
Well, first and foremost, I completely agree with you. He doesn't care, but he has not cared one moment of his time as president of the United States. He doesn't acknowledge the law. He doesn't care about the law. He doesn't care about the facts on the ground. I mean, Donald Trump operates almost exclusively in his own alternate reality, whatever he thinks whatever he believes, he just assumes is the reality and just operates that way. Sadly, he has a lot of people around him completely willing to engage him and enable him to continue to live in that alternate reality. But it has real consequences. But as it relates to what we'll do, we're going to continue to push to make sure that documents get declassified. But I don't know that that's as important. What we're focused on, what Hakeem Jeffries has charged me with doing over the next 73 days and then beyond up until January 3rd, is making certain that we deflect any threats by the president to make sure Americans get access to the ballot, their ballots get counted, and on January 3rd, the decision of the Congress is to reflect the will of the American people. And we're going to do it. Look, we're prepared for ICE agents being in neighborhoods outside of polling places, trying to intimidate. We are, as Jackie said, talking to local election administrators. We're talking to local law enforcement. We're talking to secretaries of state. We're talking to all manner of people who are engaged there. And look, there will be thousands of volunteers prepared to come out in the streets to escort voters to the polls if there's any effort to intimidate. So, look, I understand it, and I continue to understand people's anxieties because it is an anxious moment where the president daily thinks of ways to thwart an election and to subvert the will of the American people. But we are prepared. We have tens of thousands of people who are volunteering, who are engaging, who are doing the tabletop exercise, and we're working with great firms like Mark's firm and Jackie's firm. So it's I get it. People are anxious, but we're working tirelessly. This is going to come off, and people should have confidence. People should not be reluctant to go cast their votes.
Congressman Joe Morelle and Jackie Lopez, two people who are not taking a summer vacation, it seems, this year. Thanks for joining us.